Dr. Pat is known for her down-to-earth style and humor in teaching spiritual principle. She's the author of a book, Giving God a Good Time. She lives in Calgary with her 2 cats, Tom and Jerry. Please help give a UVI welcome to Dr. Reverend Pat Campbell. Thank you.
Hi. Oh, wait, I got to get the microphone. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. I can get that out of the way.
I'm going to just move
I don't
this.
roam quite as much as Thomas does. So I'll stay here for the camera. I bring greetings from the Calgary Center for Spiritual Living, who graciously gave me a 2-month sabbatical, of which I'm halfway through and spending 3 weeks here in your beautiful area to just unplug and be. So I'm so grateful for that. Would you breathe with me, please? Taking a deep breath. And again. And one more time at your own pace. Can you feel it? I just love doing that. I started it many, many years ago of breathing together at the beginning of the talk because it just levels the playing field. We've now all breathed the same air. How beautiful is that? So a few weeks ago, I led my spiritual community in Calgary through what I thought was a thought-provoking conversation around the idea of you know more than you think you do. And I used a quote from Dr. Spock, not Mr. Spock. We got various generations here. How many think I was talking about Mr. Spock? Okay, Dr. Spock, he was the baby doctor in the 50s and 60s. Many of us were raised with his teachings. And he wrote in his book, Trust Yourself. You know more than you think you do. And not only, imagine that, how comforting that was with new parents through the years, but it's also comforting for us because it's true. And the reason it is true is because that all of us actually take in so much more information than we are aware of at any given time because there is so much going on around us that we don't consciously see and we don't consciously experience. And yet much of that energy and that information and those tastes and that smell and that sound and those feelings and those vibes get stored in a place in our minds called schemas. S-C-H-E-M-A-S, schemas. And a schema is a mental filing system. They are defined as a system by which our human minds collect and store information and data, an underlying mental framework that stores and organizes lived knowledge. So all this stuff is going on all around us, and it gets stored even when we are not aware of it. So just by going through life, by having our lived experiences, we observe and we maintain and we store tons of information, which then subsequently translates in we know the more than we think we do. Can I get a yes to that? Yes, absolutely. It's like any number of situations that you're in your life, and you think to yourself, I know this. I know this. Whether it's in a social setting, or you get this brilliant download, and you think to yourself, wow, I know this. Or how about when you've taken a class, and you think to yourself, I know this. I've heard this before. Even if you haven't consciously heard it before, you still know it. Or you have a skill that you didn't know you had until you needed it. So before I get to the meat of the talk, I need to establish a truth. And I sat through the meditation this morning with this lovely lady whose name I don't know. Thank you. And it was just wonderful. And she kind of stole my talk. So, but that... But that's okay. We're all one, which is the point I'm about to make, because the truth is we are all connected. And I know you hear that every single week, but it's essential to really get it, to understand how the universe works and our place in it. So when I talk about connection, I'm not just talking about a kumbaya sort of, oh yeah, I'm you and you and me, blah, blah, blah. But that the connection I'm talking about is a very real, very scientific, metaphysical, spiritual way. Because the truth is, we all come from the same stuff. We are all made of the same substance. We have the same blood running through us. We breathe the same air. And even though we think our individual thoughts and we know our individual things, we are still part of a collective consciousness of everyone as far back as humanity has existed. So my tradition is Centers for Spiritual Living, the Science of Mind, and our founder, who was a cohort, shall we say, of the Fillmores, was Ernest Holmes. And we use a book called The Science of Mind, and he had a very old-fashioned way of calling what we're talking about, this collective consciousness. He called it race consciousness or race suggestion. And that sounds like a really weird thing to us in 2025, because what he's talking about has absolutely nothing to do with the color of our skin or the color of our hair or our eyes. Race suggestion is another way of defining this collective consciousness we're talking about, this group think, if you've heard that term before. It is those collective thoughts that bind us together. A more modern version of that was the basis of the book The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. He called race suggestion or race thought our agreements. Remember that from that book, that we were born into particular agreements. He wrote this: collective agreements, such as shared beliefs, rules, and values that are passed down through culture, family, religion, and society. From the moment we are born, we are domesticated into these agreements, essentially trained to accept a worldview that we didn't consciously choose. In other words, we're born into a system of knowledge and beliefs and culture and faith traditions and information that we didn't have anything to do with creating, and yet we are incredibly influenced by them in how we walk through life and what we know. Kind of like the schema, the mental filing system. Because sometimes those agreements or those beliefs are based in outdated or erroneous information. Anybody here have any belief systems that no longer serve, but you were raised with, that you came through with? Yeah. They may look like myths. They may look like urban legends. They may be family stories that our ancestors tell over and over and over again, such as the earth is flat. Do we have any flat earthers here? Okay. Or this one, my mother taught me, and it's not true. I don't like to say this, but it's not true, that when you go outside with wet hair, you're going to get sick. Anybody get that one? Yeah, you know what? It's not true. Because as society has become more knowledgeable, as they've gotten through science and through education, I bet you taught your daughters that, didn't you, Mom? But as we have learned more, as we have more science, more education, those agreements and those beliefs are been proven false. The earth is not flat. And yet, we might hold on to them because they are deeply ingrained in our schema, in our collective consciousness. And they can keep us stuck. Anybody? Anybody willing to cop to it? Yeah, absolutely. Anybody here have patterns or beliefs or limitations that you didn't even know you had, but you were born into them? But there's good news. You want the good news? I'm not going to keep talking about schema, I promise. We can reprogram. You are great, by the way. How fun are you? My gosh. Thank you. Okay. So I can go off script if I want. No, we can reprogram our collective agreements. As Don Miguel Ruiz said, collective agreements are shared social contracts that we've been conditioned to follow. But we have the power to consciously rewrite them. Now, if you were my community, I would have you go, yay! Yay! Do not tell me that Calgarians are more rowdy than you are. When I say that you can rewrite your collective agreements and say yay, say, oh, hey. He said collective agreements are shared social contracts we've conditioned to follow. We have the power to consciously rewrite them. This is true for us individually. It is true for us collectively. In other words, if enough of us become aware that our agreements can be rewritten or that they can be revised, we can let go of them. Not only are we making a big difference in our own lives, we are also making a huge difference in the collective, which in turn makes a huge difference in the world as we are experiencing it. Just like the meditation. We think those thoughts, we send that out into the world. That is changing the collective. Yes, I really am like this. Okay? And there's even more good news. Do you want to hear the more good news? Okay. As part of the collective, we get to use the thought field and access all of that information, all of that brilliant, creative, intelligent, high-minded, high-vibe information for us individually as well as collectively. In other words, not only do we tap into our own minds, oh, I know more than I think I do, but I have access to resources and information of the collective consciousness of humanity. It is there for the taking. So I'm going to give you an example. It's silly, but I bet that's going to surprise you. It's a little bit of a silly thing, but it works. So one of my morning routines to help keep my mind sharp and active, after all, I am of a certain age, and I like to do the New York Times Games app. You know what I'm talking about? Wordle. And the spelling bee, and the mini crossword, although they're charging for it now, it kind of ticks me off. The mini crossword and a game called Connections. Are you all familiar with Connections? If you've ever played Connections, you know it's fun, but it's kind of challenging, right? So on it, I was going to bring up my phone and show you, is a grid of 4 columns and 4 rows. And each box has a word in it. And the purpose is to find out how the words are somehow related to one another in 4 groups of 4. Yes, you're nodding your head. And it goes from pretty easy, sort of, to tricky. And I say that because even the easy ones can be hard. And another thing that makes it challenging is that the groupings can be common sense, sure. They can be history, culture, they can be different ways of spelling or grammar, and they can be pop culture, like how do these musicians tie in, or movies, what the similar theme, or TV shows, or TikTok, okay? So I think I'm pretty hip. Come on, that was funny. Okay. Okay, I do like you. Yeah. He's like, yeah, you are. You go, girl. So I like to think I'm pretty with it, right? But I do not know the latest in pop culture. However, when I'm doing the connections game, I know that I have access to the collective consciousness of the entire world. So don't laugh. Before I begin my connections game every morning, I close my eyes and I mentally draw to me the minds of those who might know the answer to the puzzle. And I'm like, come on, friends. Come on, let's figure out this puzzle. I may not know the answers, but I know that someone in this collective does. That's pretty out there, I admit. But actually, it's not. It is simply recognizing and utilizing the collective knowledge that we all have access to, because, paraphrasing Dr. Ernest Holmes, what is known in one mind is known in all minds. Yeah, right? I know. It is another example of you know more than you think you do. Now, the question is, does it always work? Do I get every connections game all the time exactly right? The answer is no, I don't. But I have no doubt in my mind that I have received some sort of insight or some sort of wisdom that I didn't think I knew, but it turns out some part of me did know it. So, which brings me to another aspect of knowing. One of the most surefire ways of receiving information and inspiration and ideas and insight is through your intuition. I'm going to say those words before because I just realized what an alliteration this was. Receiving information, inspiration, insights, ideas, and intuition. I didn't even know I did that. Oh, sorry. Is this being recorded? Okay, anyway. Intuition is one of those things that's really hard to explain, and yet once you learn how to identify it, once you learn how to trust it, it is unmistakable. So intuition is defined as the ability to understand something immediately without the need of conscious reasoning. Yeah. You just know that you know. A thing that one knows or considers likely from the instinctive feeling rather than from conscious reasoning. Like, I just know that. And, a lot of times guys think that they don't have intuition. See if any of these fit. A hunch. Guys have hunches. She just did this to him. Okay. Gut feelings. Inklings. Spidey sense. I like to use that one too because I'm cool. I already told you that, right? So, the still small voice, a nudge, a whisper. Now, intuition sometimes gets a bad rap for being too woo-woo. But the truth is, we all have access to it, even if we don't know that we do. But for those of us, and I'm willing to say, this group here, of those of us who consciously court intuition, constantly nurture our intuition, we know it is a fail-safe way of receiving guidance and knowledge. So how do we court it? How do we nurture it? How do we bring it in so that we know that we can rely on it? Well, the first thing you got to do is acknowledge that it exists. There is such a thing as intuition, yes? Everybody go like this. The next thing we need to do is to make it welcome. Now, don't get me wrong, intuition always exists. It is always available to everybody, but there is a way to make it welcome so that we recognize it when it is happening. So I have a few steps, a few tools to share with you about nurturing intuition that increases our reliance on it, shall we say. So the first one is, I bet you guys do this already. In order to nurture intuition, make space for quiet. Because intuition speaks to us in whispers, not shouts. So create those quiet moments every day, journaling, meditating, taking a walk, or heaven forbid, sitting in the silence without a device. And then, notice what you're noticing. Start tuning into your subtle responses. When something feels off, pay attention. When something feels on or right, pay attention. Maybe even keep like a little notebook or something where you jot down when you had a gut feeling, whether you followed it or not. Start paying attention and notice what you're noticing. Trust your small hunches first. You know how we're always waiting for the big moment, the thunderbolt to come down and hit you? Yeah, that can happen, absolutely. But right now, practice on the small decisions. What to eat? What route do I take? Who should I pick up the phone and call or send a text to? As you answer and act on these nudges, you start to trust your intuitive voice within. This next one is fun. Engage your imagination. Because intuition thrives when you let the creative mind play. So daydream, write, dance, draw, sing, whatever brings you joy. Do something to connect with the non-linear part of your mind. Because that is the intuition's playground. The next one, listen to your body. Intuition often speaks to us through our bodies. That tightness in your chest, yeah. That lightness in your step, yeah, that's your intuition. Learn how your body says yes, says no. It is incredibly wise. And the last one is, and this one is for me, not for you. You can listen if you want. Respect the timing. Sometimes intuition doesn't make sense right now. But with engagement, with patience, patterns start to emerge. So give yourself permission to not know everything immediately. This is a really tough one for me. I'm trying to sell a house, and I'm trying to buy a house, and they're not happening at the same time, unfortunately. So I am not the world's most patient person. So I took 3 weeks off to step away from the situation. Because I'm learning. And isn't that what we're here to do? Aren't we here to learn? Aren't we here to grow? Aren't we here to awaken? To become more aware? And yet, isn't it also so gratifying to realize that we actually do know far more than we think we do? And it's just there in the background, waiting for our acknowledgement of it. Thanks for having me here, and so it is.